Local news that matters on Local 22 News.
At this place in history, we're in the Lakeview Cemetery in Burlington with Executive Director of the Vermont Historical Society, Steve Perkins. Steve, what are we talking about today?
So we're going to talk about the contribution of Black Vermonters to the American Civil War. This section of Lakeview Cemetery is where the bulk of Black Civil War vets are buried.
You said this section was for the Black veterans, so I assume they were not buried with the white veterans then.
As you walk throughout Lakeview Cemetery, there are veterans all throughout this cemetery, some buried in family plots, but there is a specific section of the cemetery for Civil War veterans that you can find. It's up near the front, and all the headstones look the same and whatnot, but the Black vets are not there. They're buried over here. In fact, there's a headstone for Leander Freeman that is done in the exact style, the U.S. military style that you see up in that section honoring Civil War vets, but it is down here under the tree.
I'd love to learn a bit more about Leander Freeman then. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, so he's really indicative of the experience of many Black Vermonters in the Civil War. Vermont was a small state with a very small Black population. When the federal law allowed for Black regiments, of course, you know, we all know at the time the Army was segregated, Vermont didn't have enough Black men of the correct age to make a whole regiment. So they went out of state to join other Black regiments. Leander went south to Massachusetts to join the 54th. The 54th had famously attacked Fort Wagner and lost many, many men, and so they were rebuilding that regiment, and a lot of young men from Vermont joined the regiment after that battle of Fort Wagner and ended up getting sent south, and they were stationed in South Carolina and Florida. He experienced what many of the other members of the 54th saw, in that they were paid $7 a month for their service, when white soldiers got $13 a month plus a clothing allowance.
Wow. Ultimately,
through a letter writing campaign of Black soldiers, and especially Vermonters, one Loudon Langley, who was a colleague of Freeman, wrote very eloquently to the various papers in the North and to congressmen, and got that changed so that their pay was equalized. Freeman came home and joined what's called the Grand Army of the Republic. And so there's another vet behind me, William Davis, who also was a member of the 54th, part of the Grand Army of the Republic.
Now, you mentioned Loudon Langley. That name's ringing a few bells for me.
Yeah, so if you remember, we went to the Black community that grew up along the Heinsberg-Huntington line with Elise Guyette a number of years ago.
Right.
He was part of that extended community there. Loudon went south with the 54th, but he ended up joining one of the federal Army groups, the U.S. Colored Infantry, where he was promoted to Sergeant Major, which is the highest rank that a Black man could achieve in the Union Army. He ended up staying in South Carolina and became part of Reconstruction government. He was on the school board, and he was one of the representatives that was sent to the state constitutional convention. And so he was part of a delegation largely of Black men that helped rewrite the Constitution for South Carolina. But ultimately, Reconstruction ended, and Jim Crow South quickly removed all Black people, mostly Black men, from government, and he ended up dying, and he's buried in the federal cemetery in Beaufort, South Carolina.
At this place in history.